We are back. It is the fun half of opening up the phone line, 646-257-3920. We're chatting right up to the moment.
Yeah, she had to make sure that we didn't accidentally continue our conversation about the old Saturday morning cartoon block for all to hear when we went live.
I mean, honestly, some of the stuff you guys were saying was really offensive, so it's good that I cut that off.
Right. We don't want people to hear us talk about cartoons. They might mistake us for losers.
Yeah. Well, it's better than superheroes, I would say. Although, look, I like a good superhero movie, but I don't center it in politics. Although, I don't know, they're into the Disney stuff, right? Over there.
You do like a good superhero movie? Because that's kind of
a good superhero movie?
I feel like.
Well, I should be more specific. It's a very low batting average, but I liked the Batman that came out with Robert Pattinson. I thought that was good.
The first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are fantastic.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. Number 2, Spider-Man 2 is great. That's a good one.
The first X-Men I saw recently was pretty good. I liked when they were campy about it, as opposed to it being so corporate.
Blade.
And what'd you say?
Blade. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Blade.
I was trying to remember one. Blade is really good.
Yeah. But I'm not into Marvel. I'm not into Marvel. No. All right. Well, with that, I don't want to piss anybody off like I did with my
I'll hold my tongue.
My Interstellar is a dumb movie take, which I still believe, by the way. It's all right. Why am I continuing to go down this train of thought? Let's just take a call. Save me from myself. Calling from a 970 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. This is Mimi from Colorado again.
Mimi from Colorado. How you doing?
I am good. I'm good. And today I'm calling to debunk some stuff regarding in-country Sorry, I'm at work. I'm just moving to a quieter spot. Regarding in-country manufacturing, particularly for listeners who have family and friends who they're still trying to break through to. I used to be an active historian of U.S. history, so hopefully some of this will be helpful, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, listeners, I'm going to put you all on game. So Teddy Roosevelt, a nigh universally beloved president, established the FDA after reading The Jungle, this fictional book, y'all, by journalist Upton Sinclair. I'm sure everybody on the Majority Report has read it. Details the horrors of the immigration to factory manufacturing and slave labor pipeline in the USA. In a meatpacking plant, I might add, which there was such a stupid comment yesterday on Fox about that. Anyway, it is a fictional book in order to protect identities and make characters more relatable. But the events themselves are at many times actually true events. Highly recommend rereading and citing this book for any listeners who have not. Now, manufacturing, my actual point. Manufacturing was outsourced for the 4 major following reasons in chronological order. The first reason, because the FDA required safety measures to be put into place so that consumers aren't eating ground-up human fingers or being boiled alive in vats of lard. Yes, those are both real things that were happening. Number 2, peak union membership in 1950, meaning workers finally started forcing factory owners and robber barons to allow workers some meager rights. Number 3, our concept of whiteness expanded to include the Irish, Mediterraneans, Slavics, and others. And the spread of homogenization became vital to the continued growth of the U.S. American empire, in which purchasing became more important than selling. Mm-hmm. That newly elevated demographic had to be replaced in the slave labor sector somehow, which we did, as I would say many are recognizing now, with immigrants from the global south, and later, of course, mass outsourcing. And 4, because OSHA's establishment in 1970 and later MSHA for minors in 1977. So listeners also, because the conservatives absolutely hate unions. Unionization is an American tradition older than 85% of our industries. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It started in 1880 at the latest, and we can never allow that effort to stop. So please do keep being pro-union, support union-made products. And if there is time, I'd like to quickly debunk one last piece of propaganda that I'm 100% sure will keep popping up.
Sure.
Thank you. The greatest generation is a lie to propagate the imperialist arm. This is such a pervasive lie that I truly don't think that most people know. And like respect for that is completely ingrained in modern U.S. Americans. But U.S. Americans doing their quote-unquote patriotic duty
hey, Mimi,
had to be...
I think we gotta let you go. Are you in... There's like a big... like something passing you, some cleaning truck or something?
It should be clear. Can you hear it now?
Yes. All right, but just quickly, because we gotta jump.
I'm so sorry about that. No problem. No
worries.
U.S. Americans did not actually easily band together at all during the war effort. They went into it kicking and screaming, and yes, the 1% did try to stop it. It had to be legislated by Executive Order 8875. So don't believe all this Be American propaganda. So yeah, anyway, unless white people are interested in working in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, then no, we will not be seeing more jobs for Americans. And that is it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, y'all. Have a great day. Shout out to Denver DSA and Left is Best.
Left is best. Appreciate that. Love that. Quick history and quick debunking. I want to, Matt, I am you something. I want to get to this, but if you can find this other one thing, then we'll do the Tim pool in just a bit. You get what I'm talking about, right? Okay. All right, let's do some fun stuff here. Let's do 7 because this was a fun clip. Elizabeth Warren went on CNBC, and this is prior to Donald Trump, I believe, stopping the tariffs, right, and putting a 90-day pause in the majority of them. Although, as I outlined earlier, the damage is kind of done. The level of insecurity and anxiety about United States Treasury bonds is going to result in some level of economic contraction. It could be a recession in 30 days, 60 days. It could be a short recession. It could be a longer one. It could be just a little bit of a downturn, but we're going to see some effects, right? Like, especially because Trump has said, but no, not China. They're still escalating with China. And
there's still 10% tariffs around the world. Like, there's still a lot of tariffs.
At minimum, guaranteed inflationary.
And you're not, if there's a 90-day period, well, I guess you're not going to, like, Felix Biederman just had the point, like, oh, this is kind of embarrassing because I just took out $700 billion to make factories, and now you've got rid of the tariffs I was expecting to be in place for that.
Yeah, right. It's the trust is broken. And the United States already was experiencing an economic contraction prior to this because of the insanity of Donald Trump. Like, the people trusted the United States government less, and that was reflecting in some forecasts out of the Atlanta Fed and other indicators that we've been seeing, right? But part of the problem that we're in right now, the pickle, is the ultra wealthy concentrating wealth at the very top. And the Great Recession exacerbated this. The rich got richer after the Great Recession. The COVID pandemic exacerbated this. The rich got richer after that recession. And income inequality keeps getting worse. And particularly during COVID, as we've outlined many times, there was naturally occurring inflation because of supply chain bottlenecks during the once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And once those eased, corporations kept prices high and in some instances increased them and continued to blame inflation, despite the fact that we see their returns and saw that they were taking home record profits, right? So they were skimming off the top. With all of that context, Elizabeth Warren went on CNBC to talk about this dynamic and got into it in the back half of this clip with the Republican about this very issue and how Trump could be incentivizing more price gouging with these tariffs.
Our trade and tariffs reporter points out this morning that there's an on-the-water clause that comes with this in the customs release that basically says this tariff isn't enacted until 12:01 a.m. on items that are then leaving the ports from those countries. So anything already on the water is not going to come in with the tariff. Those items will be coming in to the end of May without having a tariff on them. You said you've been hearing from businesses that are already raising prices on this. Are they gouging by raising prices before their own prices go up?
Look, if they simply are passing along increased costs, that very much is a tax on the American people when they do that. But there are businesses that are already saying quite publicly, yep, they're worried, and so they're raising prices now. And this is actually one of my most serious concerns about the tariffs. Once everyone starts talking about price increases, and remember, this started last Friday with Jerome Powell saying that he's very concerned that we're going to see inflation. That is, costs are going to go up across the board for everything that consumers buy. That creates the environment for businesses to be able to say, oh, well, we'll just go ahead and increase our prices now. We will increase our prices more than the cost of the tariffs. And so you get the 1-2 punch of passing along costs from the tariffs, but also price gouging.
You always say that's been,
Can you
remember
pause
our
it
last
just for a
conversation.
sec?
This is almost like part 2.
That's just part of what was funny about that extended clip, because she's in the middle of her explanation. And this guy, who's the Republican on this particular show, Joe Kernan, starts to interrupt her. And then he does it a second time in just a second.
You always say that's been, you remember our last conversation. This is almost like part 2. Remember our last conversation about price gouging. So now you got another way to say that corporations are doing that.
Well,
but egg prices came down, inflation came down. It seems like the corporations only gouge when you say they're gouging, and then they're unable to.
The gouging came after even the Trump administration talked about maybe we're going to look into this.
Yeah, it's just, you're being a little hysterical, Lizzie. I mean, everything's gouging, apparently.
Well, he brought up the eggs too, right?
Yeah.
The reason egg prices went down is because the Trump administration is importing eggs in from outside the U.S. It wasn't that companies lowered their prices.
No, and they also just hit record highs this morning.
The FT also had a graph that said like they started talking about in looking into price gouging, the Trump administration, and like days after, like the price plummeted.
No, you don't want to listen to me on this, but listen to Jerome Powell on this. The example he gave on Friday was from the last time that Trump's tariffs went into effect. And he said there was a tariff on washing machines. No surprise, the price of washing machines went up. But the shocking part is the price of dryers went up as well, even though there was no imposition of tariffs on those. You tell me what that is, except for price gouging.
Trying to figure that out. Unless you have a clothesline, out back, you need the dryer, though, Senator.
Well, you need the dryer, but the price doesn't go up on dryers. The cost of dryers didn't go up.
Growing up.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How unserious?
Like a washer dryer.
Yeah.
The washer dryer combination is what he's, I guess, describing.
No, keep going. No, the best part is just coming up. Yeah. Go back like 10 seconds. Just because she calls him out on this right here.
A clothesline out back, you need the dryer, though, Senator.
Well, you need the dryer, but the price doesn't go up on dryers. The cost of dryers didn't go up.
Growing up.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good times. Yeah.
Totally. I love the smell.
I love the way you're changing the subject here. That is an example of price gouging.
They told me we had less than a minute.
They
said we had less than a minute left.
Now they say we can keep it
Now
going.
we can keep it going.
Now we can keep
I don't want to keep it going.
No, Senator,
I bet you don't.
No, Senator, let me ask you a little bit.
That's it,
the big issue with this,
I just like, they said we had a minute left. I had to, and they do keep on going for a minute. They didn't have that time limit. He just wanted her to stop talking twice. Anyway, your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Elizabeth Warren isn't really a welcomed figure on these business, finance, news media channels. It's not surprising that Elizabeth Warren is like a public enemy to these guys. And that even when having her on to talk with her, at least one of the hosts feels like they need to be It's not even like he was being, devil's advocate or trying to get some sort of answer out of her, and he was being hard on her, hard questioning or something. That would be welcomed, obviously. He was just trying to be a dick. And once she reciprocated with actually smart, replies, that's when he tried to change the subject. He had nothing left to say. His attempt to derail the conversation didn't work. In fact, she called him out on it.
Well, I mean, he was simply trying to extol the virtues of the private market, as she was pointing out that it's oftentimes within the motivation, like the direct motive of companies to charge as much as they can get away with charging. And, the specter of tariffs, the specter of goods going up just provides a good excuse for companies to, gouge, do greedflation, any number of things that ultimately makes them more successful at the expense of the consumer. And that's the model that, people who are like neoliberals, your average pundit on cable news, they're trying to defend that system. But when you point out the obvious, the obvious contradictions and the obvious antagonism between the consumer and the manufacturer, it just becomes less and less attractive. And so he tried to, go but won't companies just behave well for no reason? And she's like, well, we have examples of them not doing that for obvious reasons. And then he just kind of had to worm his way because he didn't want to address,
get a clothesline. A dryer, do it manually. What are you talking about, dude?
He just wanted to tell a folksy story. He was this is a folksy story that makes you think that I'm just an old-timey Southern lawyer and not someone running interference for an incredibly destructive system.
In a multi-million-dollar studio for the business press, being I remember the good old days when you did it on a washboard.
Right, he's a Luddite. It's the same thing that, remember when there was some Obama policy to help lower income people get cell phones, and there was all this outrage on the right, giving these luxury items out to people. No, I'm sorry, washers and dryers have basically kind of become staples of households, as have cellular phones. This is not giving out caviar to everybody on the street, you ridiculous people. So that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
An Obama phone in every hand and an Obama machine in every laundry.
Well, yeah, right. Ted Cruz was saying Obama's going to force us into hobbit homes because they want to restructure the economy in this particular way and take away all of the luxury items that you love. And then now we have Benny Johnson basically saying losing money costs you nothing. You shouldn't be materialistic, accept the tariffs. These people are in a cult. They're in a cult.
Well, then there's always we're sacrificing for this future that we previously shit on when Bernie Sanders is talking about fighting for it. But now that it's our guys saying we fighting for it, we're going to just assume that actually this process will lead to it, even though the process hasn't been filled at all in how we're going to arrive at this is going to save the working class somehow.
Right.
Remember when these guys were the right was all follow the liberal democratic agenda and you will be eating the bugs and you will own nothing. Yeah. And now they're don't forget to eat the bugs and own nothing.
For the country.
So much of politics in America is the politics of comfort. Much of what drives people in America is whatever makes them comfortable. Even centrism can be defined as people who are extolling the virtues of the status quo because they're comfortable under it. And so the right wing shift from no, they're attacking the things that make you comfortable, whether they be social phenomenon, heterosexuality, or the luxury goods that you need in your suburb used to be such a strong selling point for Americans. And then the moment it's no longer useful, they just jettison it. And suddenly it's oh, whoa, I thought you were manly men. Why can't you grow your own food? It's that right. Used to just be propaganda. Now they actually want people to pretend they were going to do it.
And no one is into this. There was this Quinnipiac just surveyed the public that 72% of Americans, not Democrats, it's 95% of Democrats, but 72% of Americans think the tariffs are going to harm the economy. So, they really don't have a lot of social or political capital, frankly, to be making these arguments. So they get increasingly ridiculous and desperate. Because they're working backwards from a madman's desires.
My personal favorite talking point right now is all of these guys who are talking about the 5D chess, the master strategy from Donald Trump, and it's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
My favorite, it's got to be, they're all doing it, but my favorite's got to be what's his name, Bill Ackman, the investor guy, who was on a roll, like multiple 10,000 word essay tweets in a row, begging Trump to back off the tariffs, like saying it's going to cause havoc. You got to stop. You got to stop. And then yesterday, when he paused them for 90 days, Ackman comes out and he's like, another masterful strategy from Donald Trump. He had everything in control the whole time. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
These guys.
And yet we tolerate these guys having billions of dollars because they're supposed to be the clear-eyed titans of industry that can see the future and see where to place investments. It's a fucking joke. All their money should be taken from them.
Yeah. Ackman, by the way, is the guy that was responsible for doxing all those Harvard kids who dared to speak out about genocide.
He's also the guy who's responsible for that plagiarism thing with the Harvard president. And then it came out that his wife was also maybe a plagiarist, and then
right.
It turns out if you're going to use AI to look for plagiarism, you got better run your significant other's work through that same plagiarism detector first.
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, didn't this all start because he was trying really hard to prove that his wife did not have ties to Jeffrey Epstein because she was attached to him?
Yes.
And so at the end of all this, people, maybe a few people heard about these reports about her connections to Jeff Epstein, but at the end of his rants, everybody knew that she was connected to Jeffrey Epstein. It's, oh my God.
It's very Streisand effect. All right, let's read some IMs and then we're going to do this Tim Pool thing because it's pretty fun. I just sent this, but it seems like there might have been a double audio channel on the phones. Just FYI. Sorry, guys.
I was doing some, phone people, but I was doing some production, so you just have to hear that sometimes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's what you get when you listen on the secret line.
It's also my fault because I didn't prepare Matt for this, so he had to do a little bit of on-the-fly production. Appreciate that. Courier 11 Sec. Emma again plucking the hornet's nest out of thin air just to kick it. Interstellar. Yes. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I can't help myself. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. The Greatest Generation were also really shitty parents. They raised the boomers. That is true. Well depicted in the show Mad Men.
I think the point was that, maybe I'm wrong, but the point wasn't that the Greatest Generation didn't accomplish things but that they did it through political struggle, not being patriots.
Yeah. Drawn Nathan says, I so very much want to hear you discussing Sunday morning cartoons. Yeah, right. I hear that. Maybe we'll do a special segment on that front.
I do have to say that the baby boomers did raise a large portion of millennials, and millennials turned out to be the greatest generation. So
we are the greatest, yes.
Yes.
I mean,
the real greatest generation.
To be honest, I don't actually I don't think that it's the child rearing that did it. It's probably the recession that we live, the multiple recessions that we're going to live through as millennials. Radicalized.
Whoever's responsible for Gen X, though, oh my God, abstract failure.
The internet. Just another guy said, supposedly 10 minutes before the 90-day pause was announced, a bunch of SPY and QQQ short-term calls were opened. In layman terms, it means people made bets that the S&P and NASDAQ would suddenly skyrocket. That's exactly what happened, and these folks made a killing. Very sus. Yeah, we showed that graph a little bit earlier. Maybe we'll dive into it in just a second. Hopeful one. Can you all look into or advise about the SAVE Act? Can married women really be stripped of voting rights with no passport? We need to look into that. I don't know if I can answer that right now. Ostentatious Betting on Zero is an awesome documentary about Ackman losing a crap bag of cash trying to short Herbalife. I highly recommend it. All right, we'll check it out.
Oh, I definitely want to see that now. Yeah. I'm going to go watch it right now.
Yeah, he's a big fool who's never contributed anything to the world, but he has lots of money to make bets. And that is the first time I ever heard of him, which is right after the financial crisis. when we could have used all the money to keep people in homes and stuff. He was making high profile bets against pyramid schemes that they would go under, Herbalife particularly, because capitalism is rational. And what he didn't realize is that capitalism is not rational. It's actually pretty fucking stupid. And things can defy gravity if a big enough person wants them to, which Carl Icahn, I believe, is the person who funded Herbalife to make him lose that bet.
Oh, wow. Throwback to Carl Icahn. God, there's so many characters in the Trump orbit, man.
We should have the China approach to all these billionaires, and when they get too big for their billionaire britches, we cut them down to size.
Yep. All right, really quick call, and then we'll get to this. I know people have been on the line. Calling from a 773 area code. Whoa. 773, better take.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I
Sorry,
can.
let me get to a quieter place here. Hold on.
All right. Do you mind taking us off speaker?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Second here. All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Much better.
773.
Oh,
much better. Who's this really
Yes.
calling from?
Hi there. I'm Wade calling from Minneapolis here. And yes, just a quick update on Delta organizing up here. We're doing phone calls every Saturday to get union authorization cards signed. They have something like 12,000 across the 12,000 workers across the entire country trying to get these cards signed all within a 1-year window because of the Railway Labor Act. Very annoying. But I did send an email a couple weeks back about a potential interview opportunity.
Sure.
I might have to send it again. I know you guys are busy and whatnot. But yes, there's a DeltaWorkersUnited.com. I don't know how you guys usually organize that. Or
can you send us an
get them in
email
contact
again with Delta Workers in the subject?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
I can do that.
Okay. Although I think
and
Russ actually
yes.
just found it, so you may not need to resend it. Russ just found
Oh, perfect. Yes, I think they have an email there to contact, and there's some good guys over there to call in and stuff and give some updates. And I think it's very easy to work through, I think in some cases, your local DSA to do some phone banking and stuff every Saturday for the next couple months.
All right.
But yeah, yes.
Cool.
Also, just very quickly, I just want to thank you guys. You guys are all been really great and pushed me to join DSA lately and getting
Nice.
part of the electoral aspects and the labor aspects. I'm trying to limit it to start because it's a lot to do and stuff and a lot of time commitments and stuff, but it's been really good and really appreciate all you guys. So,
Caller, what kind of conversations are you having? And every one of us who aren't in the industry, there's all those plane issues at the beginning of this term here. Like, what are the conversations like that you're having with folks, your coworkers?
I will say I'm actually not a Delta worker. We're
Gotcha.
just kind of working through them. But from the phone calls we do get, it's a lot of them. I mean, honestly, we don't get a lot of people answering. People don't really answer phone calls anymore. But what we do get, it's a lot of, at least what people's complaints are understaffing, safety related issues. I'm sure the guys at Delta can tell you guys more and stuff. But
Right.
yes, I probably can't go into too much detail. But
Gotcha.
yes,
That's
yeah,
all
sorry
right.
about that. But mostly that. Yes, thanks again. Also, just one last question. I could probably take my answer off air and stuff too. And I think a lot of this has been answered maybe during the calls today. But as far as long-term outlooks on the economy, I've got some friends who are just convinced that they can just kind of keep dollar cost averaging their way to wins and gains and stuff. And I'm trying to tell them I think this is a little more serious long-term. I as far as I know, and I could be incorrect on this, the growth of the economy is generally, at least in the U.S., is built on buying stuff, a lot of stuff, and that's kind of how, right? And if we get into some sort of recession, people start losing money, people start buying less demand, less stuff being bought. Long term, especially with all the severing of trade relationships, there's no real guarantee that this is just going to end up okay when we all retire in 50 years or something, right? I don't know.
There's no guarantee, but it depends on who you're speaking to and how close they are to retirement. So it's very individual. The people that Trump is hurting the most right now are the people that are closest to their retirement age, because their 401k doesn't have the opportunity to recover. And usually it's the best practice, and I don't see a full collapse of the United States economy on the horizon just because we are the number like, it's going to be bad, and I don't doubt that, and I think we are headed for a recession, but we are still the number 2, I think, exporter in the world. A lot of that's like airplanes and compared to like China with more textiles and electronics. The United States is more like, airplanes, technology, although China's lapping us on that. But we still, just from a land and resource perspective, will have some level of prominence in the global economy, regardless of the downturns that we're feeling right now. And so, like, if you're a little further away from retirement, you should hold the line because your accounts will have the opportunity to recover.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring. All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for the call. Shout out to Twin Cities DSA and Left is Best.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah, have a good one. Bye.
You too. All right, great call. Go ahead, Ben. You want to say something?
You didn't factor in the possibility of a Trump term 3, 4, 5 eternity. Just
not quite ready to
so
go
maybe
there
they won't
yet.
recover. Maybe they won't recover.
All right, let's have some fun with this story. So Tim Pool went on his show, and he basically revealed something that I'm not necessarily sure a lot of people were aware of, which is that he was about to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he did. Didn't apparently go as planned, but I guess he brought up Israel to Benjamin Netanyahu. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in this meeting, frankly. But here he is explaining it to his audience, being fully transparent about this meeting with the man who's committing genocide right now.
Being fully transparent after, we should be clear, being fully transparent after news of it already leaked, and it was published in an article where his name was included in the list of influencers who met with Netanyahu.
I was being facetious, but I appreciate that clarification.
Just want to make. I had a feeling, but I wanted to make it completely clear.
My having left this meeting is they are clueless to the issue. They don't know, despite the fact there was literally a protest outside, they were dismissive of. They say these things happen. The trends that I see are younger people are increasingly anti-Israel, and on the right, they're relatively neutral or don't care. My prediction, as I made over a year ago, is that with the anti-war elements of the populist movement on the right and the anti-Israel section of the left, not to mention there is a smaller but still prominent anti-Israel right, Israel's not going to have support from this country in 20 years. The U.S. is going to say, we've got two factions. Young people on the right who are following in the footsteps of MAGA populist movement who don't want to fund foreign wars, they vote no on Israel. The far left that hates Israel, they vote no on Israel. Israel, you get no funding anymore. That's what I see happening.
I think that's fairly obvious when you talk to any, Zoomers. They're clearly not pro-Israel. They look at the United States and say, look, we have our own problems here. And they look at our history of, foreign adventurism, and they're like, this hasn't worked out for me personally. I can't afford this. I can't pay bills, or I can't have a nice place or whatever. So I think it's fairly obvious, right?
I think it comes from a lack of education on how foreign policy actually works, and the fact that you literally cannot survive in this world without allies. 10 guys show up to beat you up. Are you going to fight them all by yourself? No, you need friends.
Phil might.
What's that?
What? I said Phil might.
Phil might. Yeah. But you see this from people in Congress too, that they just don't understand how foreign policy works. I think is really unfortunate. But the other issue to what you're talking about with the lack of.
Sorry, we just need to pause. We can go back to this. We need to be so sophisticated, and the way we get sophisticated isn't like, I thought he was going to mention maybe like trade routes or something like that, but it was, imagine you're going to get beat up and you don't have a crew behind you. You need friends.
I mean, it's a little
sophistication.
But when we're not talking about Israel, these guys are all about isolationism and America number one, and we don't need anybody else, and they should be groveling at our feet, coming to us.
You don't know how foreign policy works.
I don't. I guess.
Gang up on other guys.
I don't know who I know who Tim Pool is. I know who Phil from All That Remains is, and I know who, but I don't know who that other guy is. But I'd like to know what that other
Cam
guy's.
Higby?
I don't know who that is. That name
No,
sounds
neither do I.
familiar, but I would love to know his opinion on our support for Ukraine, because I know what Tim Pool and likely Phil's opinion on that is. It's probably a bit different than we got to support Israel because we need allies. It's more probably like Ukraine needs to be groveling at our feet enough, and the funding of Ukraine. I'd love to know what these guys feel about that one.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
in that sense, they're just mirroring like the average Republican politician's viewpoint on the issue, which is to speak a lot about isolationism, a lot about not funding, foreign wars and spending that money at home, because that was, mainstreamed in the Republican Party largely by Trump in 2016. Like he was one of the first people to start really speaking to like the sham of the Iraq war from the Republican side. And that opened the floodgates for a lot of sentiment that people were feeling, which is that like, how come we're spending all this money overseas and the roads outside my home look like garbage, right? And the right wing has used that wedge to further their neo-fascist aims, but they want you to carve out an exemption for Israel that doesn't make sense in their ostensible like worldview, but makes sense when you understand that like the Democrats, they're taking large amounts of money from military industrial contractors and military industrial complex in the form of APAC money. And they set the stage for this particular situation where not just the left, but the right is becoming less enamored with Israel. I think there's probably less popularity with evangelical Christianity amongst younger right wingers, even, evangelical Christianity is kind of like outmoded. And that's like the biggest source of Christian Zionism in America. And then also like the thing that Tim Pool wasn't saying is that a lot of his ideas give rise or like lead people down the pathway towards just outright anti-Semitism on the right. And a lot of those anti-Semites aren't Christian Zionist anti-Semites. And when they're not Christian Christian Zionist anti-Semites, they tend to be anti-Israel, just like outright neo-Nazi adjacent anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes. And, we've seen his tensions with Fuentes too. So he doesn't want to acknowledge that shows like his are like a stepping stone towards shows like Nick's, which is also making people anti-Israel. Like he plays a role in this. Not that I'm mad he's making people anti-Israel, but like on the right, it's not like they're moving towards better things. They're moving towards like neo-Nazism and then like isolationism.
You said so much right there, but that is a huge part of it. One, we showed this graph earlier that, yes, they're correct that anti-Israel sentiment is on the rise. It's now a majority opinion, according to Pew. 53% of U.S. adults have a negative view of Israel. The increase of Republicans aged 18 to 49 is now it's at 50% in that demographic.
35 to 50 it moved since 2022.
15-point increase in negative views for Israel for that age group of Republicans. And then you see how it's barely moved at all if you're an older Republican, just to balance that out.
The biggest psychos in the world, frankly, the 50-plus Republicans. But look at how much even the 50-plus Democrats.
Oh, my gosh.
From 43 to 66. Two-thirds Democrats have negative views of Israel.
Two-thirds of Democrats over 50. And it's higher among Democrats at all, right?
Good on the Democrats, 18 to 49, that were already 62% before that, but 71 now. I mean, and this is a party led by two folks. One who explicitly said, my job is to keep Democrats pro-Israel.
Yep, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who's in bed with AIPAC as well. And
they're so bad they can't even do that right.
They can't. I mean, and I made this point earlier with Prem Talker. If the Democrats are all in on popularism, like Matt Iglesias wants them to be back on, just follow what the polls say is popular. Here you go. Here's a gimme. But they're not interested in that. And I also love how Tim Pool represents the right's opinion on this with isolationism, but the left is anti-Israel for, I don't know, whatever reasons. He doesn't address that he also had Nick Fuentes and Kanye West on his show, who are virulent anti-Semites, and you have Candace Owens, also anti-Semitic, who's peddling this kind of stuff to the base, or at least he didn't address it right there. But he might later. Okay, well, but Netanyahu was more than willing to meet with him, and apparently Dave Rubin, according to Jewish Insider, who reported on this, that was a part of this meeting, because what people need to understand is that Israel likes anti-Semites, because the more anti-Semitism that they engender, the more people, the more they feel more justification that they can say, this is why we need an ethno-state. This is why we need to keep the hordes of Arab people out of our state. We need to maintain this demographic majority. They benefit from that kind of thing.
If there's no anti-Semitism, there's no reason for Israel to exist. Let's just play a little bit more of this, and then we can go some other stuff.
Gen Z support for Israel. Is there no like pro-Israel champions that I really see? I talk about Israel a lot. I'm a raging Zionist, but I don't see a whole lot of other people who have like a firm understanding of the history and the context.
Most people can't make a cogent argument that that young people find compelling as to why we should.
Which is why on the right it's sure Israel can do its thing, don't care, and on the left it's down with Israel. So I actually, here's a question for you guys. Can you, honest question, this is not a gotcha, because I'm looking for a real answer, and for those that are listening, comments. Can you name a prominent, high-profile, large following, I'm talking like a podcast with millions of listeners, who is staunchly pro-Israel, advocating very heavily for Israel?
Ben Shapiro.
Someone who's Gen Z?
No, anybody in the podcast space.
Dennis Prager.
Sorry, anyone in the IDW, like the Weinstein brothers, like what are you talking about? Who? Barry Weiss?
Ben Shapiro, Barry Weiss, every cable anchor, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, except like some on MSNBC.
Tim Pool, I would have put that in. I mean, we'll get into some of that a little bit later. But
I will say they abandoned like the previous point, which was like, can you give a good reason why people should? The only reason that he gave was, like Matt said previously, was that like, oh, just like a lazy analogy to like a fist fight, like getting jumped outside of like the local saloon, I guess, in an old Western or whatever. And then they kind of revisited that, like, hey, like, well, like why should Gen Zers be on board with Israel with all of the things we just mentioned? And then they were just like, well, who are the Gen Z far right influencers who would get them on board? Not like addressing the central premise of like, why would you be?
And they weren't even looking for a Gen Z name. They were just like, is there anyone that's pro-Israel? It's like, what? Are you out of your mind?
There's a few people, but they're going insane.
Yeah. And what Matt was looking up earlier was because I saw this. It reminded me of this part of my conversation with Tim Pool from nearly 2 years ago at this point, where that very tension that you describe here, Binder, came up about their vehement opposition to the support for Ukraine, but and how, like, if they're isolationists, that should also extend to Israel. This is that exchange.
Also unclear to me if Higbee himself is pro-Ukraine. He might be like the Douglas Murray type. So I just want to put that in there.
Right, where Palestinians are defending themselves, and then it's, oh my gosh, they are just it's completely symmetrical. Israel and Palestine. These are two actors just battling it out.
So you're in favor of intervention there?
I would love to fund the Palestinians so that they were able to have a better life for themselves.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
Well, we already fund Israel, dude.
Yeah.
Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I don't have an answer to.
Then you're in favor of funding military. We fund the Iron Dome.
Literally saying,
we fund their military-industrial complex.
Anything enough about it?
Then if it's your principle and you're anti-war, then you should be saying that we should cut funding for Israeli defense right now.
That's why I said 99%. I'll say I absolutely lean against providing military aid to Israel. I just don't know. I will say.
So there you go. But let's get back to, I guess, this part, because there's a point where he tries to blame some of the anti-Israel sentiment on funding, right? Is that a part of this where he says the Qatari op part? I was just reading that. It might be the beginning. We don't need to get to it, but according to Jewish Insider, who wrote up this article, Poole argued that there is a Qatari op to manipulate social media algorithms to make anti-Semitic and anti-Israel episodes appear to receive far more views than, say, tips for picking up women, in order to incentivize podcasters and YouTubers to produce more anti-Semitic content. Netanyahu, however, was non-committal in his response, saying only that it's possible. No, part of why those videos are doing well is because they are some of the most horrific images that you will ever see in your life. Bones and flesh, just like in piles, because people can't identify the level of slaughter. Children with their heads blown off. Fathers wailing over the carcass of their toddler. That's why people are clicking on those things, because they are inflammatory, but because of the violence that's being inflicted upon these people in this genocide.
Here's just another. I got actually a bunch of clips here, but here's just a little bit earlier from this in the same section. Tim laying it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Last night I wasn't here. I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Interesting. I didn't remember. Did we get that invite?
No, I did not get that invite. And I just want to remind people that Tim was caught victimized, getting millions and millions of dollars from the Russian government.
That he now thinks that might be a lie. He's sort of denying that. We'll have to get into that,
well,
but of course we know it's not.
In court documents, it's pretty clear. That broke after when I had that conversation with him. That was June 2023, so prior to October 7th. He didn't know anything about Israel at that time, but was very anti-Ukraine. We find out later that he was taking Russian money. I wonder if his position on Israel is influenced by anything at all. I mean, he did just meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. That seems curious to me.
It's interesting they had his contact information.
Yeah.
But what's called Chatham House rules, for those that are not familiar, this means that you cannot reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So
can you again? Don't need to take it off the screen. Just a reminder: we just played a clip of him saying, "I don't know much about it." The recipient of our top military amount of military aid, Israel.
Funny because they bring us into the Blair House, which is where Netanyahu was staying. And immediately people are walking around with their cameras, their phones up. They actually took our phones from us. And I legit thought they would maintain Chatham House rules, meaning you can't quote the prime minister, you can't quote his officials and the other people who were there, but you can report what was said generally. If you wanted an official quote on a specific matter, you would then ask an official once the meeting was wrapped, and they'd provide you the exact quote. Or they would just say outright, like, we ain't putting our quotes on that one.
The Chatham House rule. So he's accusing the fact that Jewish Insider had got leaks about what was said in this meeting of violating Chatham House rules.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of how he would react if, like, I don't know, some journalist was like, yeah, Chatham House rules, I didn't report that. Like, who cares? What are you talking about, Chatham House rules? Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Sounds like he's a little mad it got out.
But what's funny to me is Tim Pool, like, obviously there's a video of you saying, hey, do you want to fund Israel? And it's like, I just put forward my credibility as I'm very anti-war, but I haven't considered whether we should be sending arms to Israel. I'll have to get back to you on that. There's a couple instances if you search, because Tim put up this tweet, which was Israel derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
And you just put that up.
Israel defense syndrome over here.
Sorry, you're not on.
Israeli defense syndrome. Oh, there we got it. No.
No.
It's all right. We're still working on this. Okay, but either way.
But Tim Pool himself has. I go back. Israel, USS Liberty derangement syndrome, which is anytime one of his co-hosts brings up the USS Liberty, which was when Israel bombed an American ship in 1967.
Yep.
Tim Pool loses his mind. Here, go wide shot, Russ.
Why does he do
This is the first I've heard of the USS Liberty that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, God, no, don't even do it.
1967, during the Israeli Six-Day War, they accidentally torpedoed or they shot down a...
Yeah, but depending on who you ask, it's not an accident. That's like a whole can of worms of weird Jewish stuff.
Let's jump to this next story.
Okay. There's one there, and I got another one here actually too, and we'll get into what actually happened there.
He wants to move on so quickly, and also was meeting with Netanyahu and has previously taken money from foreign governments that comported with his coverage.
Isn't this the sort of thing independent media should not be unafraid to talk about? This was another one that posted by Halal Flow.
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something with the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that one.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned, like, false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. Well, I don't want. We should get out of there.
It doesn't. Let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
What?
That's weird, huh?
I think that was halal flow with that edit there. But yeah, 1967. This is Ilan Pape's most recent book. Actually, it might not even be the most recent one. One of his recent books, Lobbying on Both Sides of the Atlantic. The carte blanche had limits, which were breached when the Israeli Air Force bombed an American spy ship called Liberty, killing 34 Navy personnel and wounding more than 100. Israel apologized, explaining it was as a case of mistaken identity, scarcely plausible, given that the Star-Spangled Banner flew high on the deck. AIPAC realized that it could not prevent President Johnson from admonishing Israel in public for assaulting the ship. All it could do was damage control, as it was clear that even the usually pro-Israel mainstream media would find it hard to swallow the Israeli explanation. Israel's reasons for attacking the ship are still debated today. It probably had to do with information the spy ship was able to collect that might have tarnished Israel's international reputation. Most scholars assume that the ship had gathered intelligence about an Israeli massacre of Egyptian soldiers. Israeli massacres, a thing that they do a lot, of Egyptian soldiers, and about the expulsion of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, which Israel wanted to conceal. But we still need further substantiation of this reason. And the most important task for AIPAC was to dissuade members of Congress who wanted an official inquiry from making this demand a goal they achieved. So the reason we don't know, and why Destiny can say like, oh, actually that's anti-Israel people, like even they go crazy with it. The reason we don't know is because of the Israel lobby.
Right. He says it's a Jewish thing. No, it's actually a U.S. national security, like military industrial complex deep state thing.
Who Tim Pool met with. That's the reason we don't know the answer to who shot that ship in the fucking Mediterranean.
And I'm opening it up in just a sec, but I just want to make this one point before I forget. And I did just forget. Okay, keep going. I had it. Go ahead, Brandon. Damn it. What was the point?
I was just going to say, I think, he tried to make it seem like he's upset about both sides, like anti-Israel sentiment on the left, anti-Israel sentiment on the right. But I think this is mostly about what's going on in his own space, like the right, and how many people like Candace Owens have shifted away from, what was apparently the right-wing status quo position on Israel to carve out themselves parts of these audiences who are getting more and more explicitly anti-Semitic as they fall further and further down these rabbit holes. Like you mentioned, he drew this dichotomy between like videos about like picking up women and videos about like anti-Israel or anti-Semitic sentiment on the right. But in my mind, those two things are linked, because you start out on that pipeline looking at those pickup artist type videos, those kinds of like incel adjacent videos, and it's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from like, well, actually Jewish people are the ones who are fomenting feminism in like Western society to like weaken the social fabric of our society to make it easier to take over. Like they're producing that content and they're starting their viewers on the first step down that path, and then getting frustrated when they move past them, and they're getting frustrated when they move further to their right. And like when he posted about that meeting, it's not that people with like Palestinian flags were yelling at him that got him upset, because he's used to that. It was people with names like Red Pill Central and like, the Suave Groiper that was yelling at him in his mentions. I don't know if that's a real person, but
it sounds like it could be though.
Yeah.
That's who's
Pepe
mad at
meme.
him. People in his mentions yelling for him to debate Nick Fuentes about Israel. Like he doesn't like having to feel those things from the right, because like, people just find that it's an insult to their political ideology if you question them from like further to the position they are.
Yeah, and what I was I just remembered what I wanted to say about this. I think that's a great point. The right-wing media space has very little respect for their audience. They think they can keep feeding them slop and control how they react. But right now, like we had a caller yesterday who said that her brother has moved from being extremely pro-Israel to being really anti-Semitic and reading Hitler. And I would not be shocked if these are the kinds of people that listen to Tim Pool. But you got to ask questions about why Tim Pool is meeting with a top world leader, again, the Hitler of our time, currently committing genocide, and I guess revealing it. But it reminds me of Joe Rogan, where he has all of these deep state people on, or he has his tech oligarchs on, his favorite, to launder their PR, which really kind of benefits the corporate network state that Donald Trump is trying to build. Rogan claims to engage in conspiracism and bring that to his audience. But a lot of the people he's been having on recently over the past few years are directly the subjects of the deep state, or part of the deep state or whatever, that would be engaging in those conspiracies. And so I do find it interesting that Tim Pool is kind of in that same vein right now.
There's this clip from Elephant Graveyard.
Yes.
This is Elephant Graveyard is a great YouTube channel. He did a video called how comedy became a dystopian imperial hell world. And this just drives that point quickly about the nature of Joe Rogan guests, and it slides in perfectly with Tim Pool's sort of pretensions towards being independent, but constantly getting money from governments like Russia, and I guess media powwows with Bibi Netanyahu.
I would have been like them if I didn't have the access to the kind of conversations that I've had, if I didn't have the kind of mindset that I have.
The mindset.
My personality. Is just immune to bullshit.
He's got it all.
When bullshit hits me, I go, oh, I know what this is. I grew up without a dad.
Daddy.
I don't trust people. And the people that haven't experienced that, I can understand why they formed the conclusions that they did, because I could have been them. I 100% could have been them.
Well, thank God Joe's mommy bought hamburger that fateful night. Or Joe could have ended up a guy with the biggest mainstream media platform on earth, being easily used and exploited by weird billionaires and grifters, and allowing it to happen because he's just so desperate for love and validation on account of that dad hole. It's crazy to think there's a multiverse thing out there where #1 comedy podcast doesn't have guests like some comic book villain evil rich guy, all these nutjob billionaire dweebs, and I don't know, a guy literally from the CIA.
Yep.
That's on once a month for some reason. And also the entire government, basically. Could any of these people have tried to influence the way he thinks? Nah, man, he grew up without a dad, so you don't even have to take that question into consideration.
Incredible.
No, I mean, that's a great point. If the Joe Rogan podcast didn't exist for the CIA and politically well-connected people to launder their propaganda through, the CIA would invent the Joe Rogan podcast. Mm-hmm. And I'm not 100% sure that they did not. Those are the two, the Joe Rogan podcast and the Alex Jones podcast are the two podcasts that are very questionable in terms of their relationship with dispelling conspiracy theories as opposed to promoting status quo friendly ones, right? Joe Rogan's podcast is Joe Rogan's a sheep's idea of a free thinker. And he has he just has the illusion of somebody who is very considered in what he's thinking about. It's very it's just crazy how many people just tune directly into propaganda on the Joe Rogan podcast. They're
but that's what he's commodified. The everyman thing that obscures what he's actually selling to people.
But Alex Jones is so considered about it that he literally has made the same accusation that a guy named David Icke is doing to conspiracies, what he's actually doing, which John Rotson, the great British journalist, has a book called Them, where he goes with Alex Jones to Bohemian Grove, but Alex Jones called David Icke a guy who's putting a turd in the punch bowl of good conspiracy theories. That's what these guys are doing. It's the same way the farcical Epstein client list and all that stuff. It's a turd in the punch bowl and all that stuff so they can move on. Let's just do a little bit more, because this is the part about the Qatari op, just to drive it home about Tim Pool and his audience that we sort of alluded to.
Right.
About this stuff, and he's going to say, I can't speak too much on the nuclear deals, blah, blah, blah. Considering this was Chatham House and it was expected whatever he said was going to come out, I didn't see anything really substantive. However, in the story, they say, Pool expressed concerns about increased anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the pro-Trump podcasting space, according to sources in the room, so they weren't there. Pool famously had Kanye West on his podcast, and the rapper walked out mid-interview after Pool pushed back against anti-Semitic comments. Responding to Pool, Netanyahu said that the reason he invited the group is to meet with him. To me? Pool argued that there is a Qatari op to manipulate social media algorithms to make anti-Semitic and anti-Israel episodes appear to receive far more views than, say, tips for picking up women, in order to incentivize podcasters and YouTubers to produce more anti-Semitic content. Netanyahu, however, was non-committal in his response, saying that's only possible. Fake news!
How dare you, Tim?
Absolute fake news. It's close to reality, but this is what they do, okay? First, the person who was there clearly wasn't there. Ask somebody who then conveyed incorrectly what I actually said.
What were you saying, Vinder?
It's fake, absolute fake news, but also close to reality? What?
Whew.
I guess he's going to explain, but I'm dying to know what could possibly be fake news but close to reality.
Me too.
It's just a liminal space. It's very complex.
I said there has been a report released from pro-Israel sources alleging Qatar is funding bots and operations to promote anti-Israel content. Is there any evidence that's true? And he said, I don't know. It's possible. That's what happened. I did not say they actually were doing that because I don't know that they're actually doing it. However, I did to a variety of people express what I've expressed on this show, that there are clearly bots that are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. That is not to say that people who are critical of Israel don't exist or that no one is critical of Israel. People.
That's about enough.
Every accusation is a confession. I'm just like in awe of how much he's revealing here, to be honest with you. First of all,
his issue with the report is that he said what he said, but he phrased it in the form of a question instead of a statement, which is it's relevant, sure, but it's also the real meat of what's being reported. Like that's the point is the question he asked, and then what Netanyahu's response was, which is in that article, honestly.
Well, but also just the idea that Netanyahu, it's included in here, said the reason he invited the group is to meet with Pool. Why would that be the case if there isn't some pre-existing relationship? I'm open to the idea that there isn't one and that just perhaps he's a big fan. But we already know that Tim Pool has taken money from the Russian government. Unwittingly, he was victimized by the millions. We get it. But he's done so. And
he's a proven mark, in other words.
And so Netanyahu specifically wanted to meet with skateboard enthusiast Tim Pool on his visit to the United States.
Oh, I want to know how to do those kickflips, Tim. Please.
Yeah. And also that he's telling on himself with the Qatari op. Oh, yeah, right. That gives the IDF morale to see such a strong man in the United States with his skate park. This is what they're fighting for with Western civilization. When they bring up Qatar, it's because they're upset that Qatar partially funds Al Jazeera, which is one of the only news outlets that has the resources to document Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. So again, this is another accusation as a confession thing. Even bringing up Qatar to Netanyahu, to me, indicates that it's like, well, if I take Israeli money, I'm just speculating. If I take Israeli money, I mean, it's because there's Qatar on the other side doing the same thing. Anyway, that was meatier than I thought it would be. Kind of interesting. Just throwing that out there.
I mean,
maybe
we're
we're thinking Netanyahu wanted to meet YouTuber Tim Pool or journalist Tim Pool, but really he wanted to meet iTunes chop-tarting music artist Tim Pool. He's a big fan of Tim Pool's music. Maybe that was it. Yeah.
I still remember talking to you before you debated Tim Pool and knowing that Israel was a sore spot. And at this date, I can't remember what it was that made that evident, but it was obvious. And it's nice to know that, he's taking meetings that he thought were under Chatham House rules, but they get reported anyway.
I mean, it's funny because Tim Pool's on the defensive here. Obviously, he's received pushback from this meeting. I think, the non-silver lining, the gray lining is it's largely from like a growing like anti-Semitic portion of the right that is becoming more and more vocal, and they're becoming more and more vocal as they become more and more dissatisfied with Donald Trump's actions, and are able to recruit more people who become dissatisfied with Donald Trump's actions and are looking for an easy explanation for why he's behaving this way, why he's ruining people's lives with tariffs, why he's, getting rid of the Department of Education, and therefore your little brother is not going to have occupational therapy at school anymore. Like, people are going to be looking for reasons why this is happening. And the far right just has no problem platforming anti-Semites, and that's going to be their go-to explanation. Every time Trump pulls out Netanyahu's seat, they're giving them more evidence of like a global conspiracy that is actually just like, no, it's just neoliberalism. It's just the same old thing that the left is always talking about.
And you see how they package it to attack the left. Like Tim Pool saying, well, you got a smaller portion on the right that's anti-war, which is a good thing and it's defensible. But then you have all these people on the left that are they hate Israel.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu sees that. And like all these, like the Candace Owens sort of rump that is going anti-Semitic as a result of this, they will be used as a cudgel to attack, like they already are, the protesters as anti-Semitic themselves.
Well, I mean, they know that like there's going to be a new market for like anti-Semitic content because, people are going to not be exposed to the left critique of Israel on modern platforms. They're not going to be exposed to the left critique of Israel. This is always the way in which the center empowers fascists, because they're going to hold up like people like Candace Owens as like the face of the pro-Palestinian, the anti-Israel movement in America, because she's vocally anti-Semitic. And so people who feel strongly and are uninformed about the Palestinian situation are going to see Candace Owens as the only person, who's speaking to this genocide, the only person, and that's going to make her a more attractive person. They're just relying on this idea that they can call everything anti-Semitic, and that they can platform clearly like Hitler adjacent commentators to like just tamp down on anti-Israel sentiment. And maybe it will have some of that effect, but the alternative effect that it will definitely have is that it will make more people feel like the only acceptable way to critique Israel is to be actually anti-Semitic, like Candace Owens is, and that just creates a market for anti-Semitism. It creates more anti-Semites, which we, like Emma said, it's like what they want, because that's the core value proposition of Israel. But it does just increase the total number of anti-Semites out there.
Just a quick sentence to bolster that is that Candace Owens is a top 5 political podcast in the country. I saw that the other day. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you just said that too, because it bolsters what I'm going to say is that I think everyone should do more to remind, or not even remind, to inform, because they probably don't even realize it or know. Everyone needs to do more to inform everyone that the reason Candace Owens has the platform she has is thanks to the biggest right-wing pro-Israel podcaster on the planet, Ben Shapiro, who funded her for years and made her the superstar on the right she is today.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right, guys. All right. I'm so sorry to everybody who's been on the line. Please try tomorrow. I'm sorry. Gonna read some IMs, then we're gonna get out of here. Okay. Goose.
I can't get over like picturing Netanyahu like dropping in down like a skateboard ramp.
It'd be like a secret character on 90s Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's like if you do a specific trick on a specific rail in a specific level, you unlock like Spider-Man and Netanyahu. That's like secret characters. It was reaction face.
No, what happened? Something up.
Your camera started zooming in.
No, I didn't touch it. It's the weirdest shit ever. All right, hold on.
I thought you were doing something for dramatic effect. I thought you were about to like.
It was not.
I love Tony Hawk Pro Skater too. Like I do too. It's a great game.
It's like Adult Swim style editing.
It was really, really odd. Anyway. I was about to say that if Tim Pool invites Netanyahu to skate, I just hope that Netanyahu styles himself correctly. We all know it's not cool to wear a helmet. We all know it makes you look like an idiot. And I hope he tries the hardest trick possible. All right. Sam's toilet breaking movement. Speaking of David Icke and Alex Jones, shout out to ContraPoint's latest video conspiracy. Really great deep dive into that world. Southpaw Welding, as a person who also grew up without a dad, Joe is just weird. I trust people too much, probably. Well, he has that issue.
And he brings it up.
Courier 11 Seconds says, I'm in the battle for cluelessness supremacy. Tim Pool remains near the top of the leaderboards. Ideal Paradox, this is a great conversation. Are we allowed to talk about how you can be pro-Israel and anti-Semitic, or anti-Israel and not anti-Semitic? And the two other ways, this is something I have heard here first. Well, welcome.
Yeah, Christians United for Israel, I would say, which is the most Zionists in terms of raw numbers.
Yep.
In this country. Yeah, I would say that they are anti-Semitic and pro-Israel. And I think most people who are genuine anti-Zionists aren't also anti-Semitic. I think there's a little bit of crossover. But I think as far as like these protests and stuff, I think it is a heinous smear to suggest that these anti-genocide protests are anti-Semitic at all. It might attract some anti-Semites like in the vicinity, which is typically what's happening when people are on camera saying heinous stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of Jews that are anti-Zionist.
They're overrepresented in the
Right.
protests. Jewish people
Right.
are overrepresented because they say not in our name, but that never gets reported. And if you're genuinely anti-Semitic, you're going to be more drawn to this Tim Pool ecosystem versus being an activist in the street. I'm sorry, it's just like that's not what this movement is about.
Some of the most anti-Zionist activists out there are Jewish, and some of the most pro-Zionist some of the most Zionist people out there are not Jewish.
Oh yes,
No, I mean, the
Joe
majority
Biden. Joe Biden
Right,
said
right,
proudly
right.
in his presidency, "I am a Zionist."
I mean, when I
Right,
think
which
of
is-
Zionists, I think of people like Michelle Bachmann and Mick Huckabee. as much as I think
Mike
of
Johnson.
Netanyahu.
Mike Johnson.
The
But that's
single
also
biggest.
I was just gonna say that Joe Biden's the perfect example to use, because like if critiquing Zionism is somehow anti-Semitic, then you're basically saying that I'm being anti-Semitic to like the most Irish Catholic guy out there, Joe Biden. He's not even Jewish. Like, yeah, it's just so out of touch with reality. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, I'm gonna say just like the largest like population of Zionists are American Christian evangelicals,
Yep.
who were like indoctrinated into that post 7 Days War by like the burgeoning like movement of televangelists that were becoming very popular in America, like Jerry Falwell. Like that's where it starts really in in America, like in the 60s and in the late 50s, and all of those like big tent revival and like on television for the first time churches.
Jerry at the beach says, "Shout out to the suave Groiper. His analysis is actually really nuanced once you get past the anti-Semitism."
He was suave before he became a groiper, so that's where that comes from.
Garrett from Nova, Mossad controlling Emma's camera to keep the hidden skater Yahoo secret. Trump change Zionism was founded by anti-Semites. Yes. Affluence and wretchedness. Please have Taylor Lorenz or Kat Turnbarge on to talk about the current right-wing push to draw in women into their ecosystem with anti-feminist pop culture coverage. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like Taylor's work. I've been meaning to have invite her on before, so that's maybe something we write down here.
Lance from the Surfs really early on pointed out in a video, and he mentioned it on Leftist Mafia, how one of the biggest people on TikTok talking about what is the current Blake Lively and who's the guy she's
Justin Baldoni. These people all seem lovely. I'm being sarcastic.
On TikTok, Candace Owens has successfully rebranded herself as the #1 voice in covering that particular pop culture thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, and they're going to look deeper into Candace Owens once they like her commentary on that and fall further and further down the right-wing rabbit hole.
Well, that's why like Ben Shapiro and they talk about like the Snow White movie, or they talk about Marvel in general.
Yeah.
It's because celebrity culture is just, there's a lot of people, hurting into those that sort of space.
Candace is making herself like very broad in her appeal to like different elements of like the conspiracy addled American population. Like she's also gotten into like flat eartherism. She's like a space denialist now too. Like she's just creating a lot of entryways into like her content for people who are susceptible to the kinds of like propaganda and radicalization that she's like is selling. But
now that she's independent from the Daily Wire, and they're going, we got to do more Candace clips. I think that like now we're stumbling on somebody we need to be countering right now. All right, guys, 3 more and then we're gonna get out of here.
Emma, you need to become the new top pop culture reporter on the Blake Lively thing.
I'm getting old. I don't know. I'm like not up on latest stuff. I don't know anybody at this point.
You got to be the same age as Candace Owens, if not younger, right? Candace Owens is not young.
Oh, well,
super young.
I get it, but no, I'm sure she's older than I am, but like I don't have a team of producers feeding me this crap.
Candace might.
That's true. That's true. Well, Matt Leck, you better get really comfortable with the Blake Lively situation.
I don't know the gender of Blake Lively.
All right, well, I have one up on Matt. It really is. That story, to be honest, it's just a bunch of rich people being horrible. I mean, I understand that there's like a feminist tilt to the story, and his lawyers are the Johnny Depp lawyers who are using misogynistic smears to make their case more acceptable to the public, is my understanding.
There was something
but it doesn't
massively
mean
artificial.
I think, it doesn't mean I think that like that Blake Lively is behaving ethically here. I mean, like her husband was the executive producer. There's power stuff here, and they're all wealthy. I mean, this is just stupid.
I've seen that stuff burble up the same way I saw the Depp stuff burble up, which made me very suspicious that some law firm was paying for some bots to influence a wider conversation, and I just clocked out of.
I got fooled by some of that Depp stuff that I regret and wish I was more discerning. Yeah.
And it all came out that you're absolutely right that was what was going on, Matt. They were using all sorts of, internet, social media, tools to spread their version of events, and that's sort of how that became the narrative.
Yep. All right, got it wrong, guys. So just let me read two more IMs, and we'll get out of here. Ramona Frankenstein. Candace Owens is such a black Nazi. She was given an honorary account on Nude Africa.
She started her career as Red Pill Black.
Yes. It's just like a little on the nose. And the final IM of the day. Not even black red pill, like putting black on.
I'm the red pill black.
I'm the red pill, but I'm black. Okay. All right. And the final IM of the day. Burger Dude. My sister made me realize there's another huge population besides retirees getting screwed right now. Parents who have savings and 529 plans for their kids who are getting ready to go to college. Wow. Okay. That's true. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We will thank you guys. Check out Binder's show. Check out Brandon's. Check out Left Reckoning. We will see you tomorrow.